joining us. Wanted to discuss the recent loss, a shocking loss of Wallace Thornhill, which, first, welcome to the show, Neil. And second, I felt Wall was going to be one of them guys that lived to be 100. He just seemed to have so much energy. I was so shocked.
I agree.
Yeah.
I didn't see it coming. Given the health of others and the age of others,
Right.
I mean, I figured certain people would go before others, but this was a warning shot right across my bow that I didn't see coming, and I should have seen it when John Cook or Cook passed on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That was sudden too, right?
well, death always is, isn't it?
Hmm.
I guess it's like you're alive and then you're not. But
Yep. That's right. That's how it is. You're here 1 minute and you're gone the next.
I think the man could comfortably rest easy saying that he changed the world. I recall, well, I don't think we're at that point yet, but
We're
I'm
in the
just thinking,
thousands and they're in the millions. That's the problem.
oh no, I meant that I was simply thinking of the first time that I met him. So,
Well, share that with us. I'm sure that a lot of people would like to know about that.
uh, well, um,
You got some inside baseball.
it was interesting. I had met him online many years prior to meeting him,
Okay.
if you know what I mean.
What year? Do you remember?
Did I meet him or when I first met him online?
First met him online.
Oh, I would say 13 years before 2017 ish.
So about 2004.
That might be accurate, yeah. That's when the Thunderbolts forum was still up.
Okay.
I don't even know if you know what that is.
I don't. I
No?
don't. No, I heard of it before, but I never.
Before your time.
Before my time, yes. I came in
Yes.
around 2000, somewhere between 2014 and 15 when I came aboard.
Oh, it's sort of like you always remember where you were.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going through the Thunderbolts pictures of the day, and then I clicked on the forum button, and then I registered, and uh,
So they're no longer available? Is that what you're saying?
it was taken down.
Ah, that's too bad. Yeah.
Well, I managed to keep it up a bit longer
Mhm.
by making an impassioned plea with David Talbot that basically said, if this forum did not exist, there would be a necessity to create it.
Uh,
It was as simple as that. I
yeah.
mean, if
Yeah.
this place didn't exist, we would have to go do it anyway.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Yes.
and and they were getting punished because um, of the way that they were worried about internet laws changing and all this other crazy stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
let's just say the crazies are out of the bag now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, David Talbot, the consequence of becoming somewhat popular now is that you're going to attract a bunch of people who wish to use you to prove their individual ideas.
That going around.
Yeah, yeah, and in some cases, they're absolutely right to do that.
Hmm.
But they don't stop where I guess I would stop,
Yeah,
or
I
where
understand.
others would stop, where it's like you're now entering into the realm of fiction, and your stories are bold, but are they true?
Hmm.
Can you prove it? And your answer being, well, you can't prove it's not true, is not an answer. Okay, like I don't accept that. It's not a scientific answer. You have a scientific question. You must have a hypothesis, and you go through it and you test it.
Hmm.
And uh, in that way, we know that things like dark matter have been made up because they need to be the the facts needed to be made to fit the theory.
Yeah.
And so we ended up with what we ended up with. Now, I'm not worried about that. Some people are like flipping absolutely head over heels over it. just by looking at it, you can see it's destroying itself just by following it in the news. And combine that with the problems with quantum mechanics and the people who are quote unquote losing faith in science because their models are unpredictable or useless, more or less, and they're not building a bigger collider won't change that.
Absolutely right. I agree 100%. You know, they just keep wasting money on useless things like gravity wave observatories and things like that. It's just ridiculous.
Well, I'm
Now,
happy
back,
that they did,
yeah,
at least because
I
their
always,
controversial results are exactly what they should be, controversial.
I always get a kick out of every single time they are peering into space deeper and deeper with these probes. They're coming out with all the more reason why the universe is electric and just ignoring it. It's almost like a Saturday Night Live skit. They're so obtuse, it's ridiculous.
Well, and you can't blame them. I mean,
Right. But
I can't. I want to, but I mean, have you watched The Wrath of Khan?
oh, of course I have. Yeah.
Okay, so in the Mutara Nebula, here goes in Captain Kirk, and he's being pursued in his damaged ship as well. The USS Reliant is pursuing them, and they're trying to and they're in this cloud. There's fluctuating electricity going on, and little sparks and stuff. You can see it in the distance, glowing and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was 82, and they got that through a description of what they thought a nebula was by some astronomers, and they made that special effect. And that's it. That's all they had. That's all they had going in. And now that image is seared into my brain as what a nebula is.
Yeah. What nebula did you call that?
I said it was Mutara. I think that was the name of it in the show, the Mutara Nebula. I don't know. Maybe I'm
Was it
wrong.
a real nebula or no?
No, it was just
Ah,
for the show.
oh,
Sorry.
I see. I
It's a
get.
special effect that was used several times in the show, though, in Star Trek: Next Generation and such.
Now I saw it when it first came out, so it's been a while. I think that came out in what, the early '80s.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I could find a nice little picture of that.
Battle
But
in the Mutara. I got it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I was right.
Yeah. Yeah. You were right. Yeah. I'll share screen with you.
Nailed it.
Oops, that's not the right thing. We talk about things. I'll just go to different websites. That's what I usually do anyway.
Well, I'm not seeing. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
me
But
make it
so
big. There it is.
yeah, I know it's hard. I can't. It's hard for me to make it real big. But I'll do it later when I'm cutting the video. Yeah. But anyway, so your point
There,
being,
that's the effect right there.
yeah.
See what I'm looking at? See that beautiful picture? In 1982, that was the best special effect we ever had of what a nebula probably looked like. Not until 2 years later, they were using, in 1984, they were using that, what was it called? They were using the shots from Voyager as they went
Ah,
by Jupiter, and they
as
used
they
that in
went.
2010, A Space Odyssey. So they got some really good shots of Jupiter and Miranda and so forth. Um, yeah, just Jupiter, Voyager. Yeah, Voyager. Yeah, I don't know which one took the best shots. So, but
Oh,
that's the
they had
pictures
so
they.
many. Yeah, I was. I remember. They probably I can get it to show on animated GIS. It's better. It's always better. Yeah, right there. That's Voyager headed straight towards Jupiter.
You
Yeah.
know that I actually saw that with my own eyes,
Really? How?
with a telescope, obviously.
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, I've seen Jupiter with a telescope too. It's cool.
Well,
It looks
the
like
red
a
spot
mother
though,
with little ducklings.
the red spot though, that was the part that's disappearing, and I'm glad that I
It,
got to see it.
it is disappearing. I find it.
Well, according to it's losing strength. I mean, earlier pictures of the size of that uh, storm made it comparatively massive.
Yeah.
Like it was even bigger than it was in the past. If you look at a historical drawing of Jupiter, um, uh, I'm sure you'd find something along the lines. Actually, let me type one in. I want to
That's
see.
Voyager 1 right there. So what I just want to digress, though, get back on the subject of Wall. So I don't remember what brought us to Jupiter, but it was cool. But just speaking of Wall, so what was 2004? You met him online? Was that it?
Well, he defended me because I incorrectly used the word induction.
Okay.
I know that sounds kind of weird, but
Well, conduction, capacity, and induction are the three big words in electricity, right? Electric engineering.
no, you got them wrong. But you got close. Induction is definitely one. Capacitance is the other.
Yes, capacitance.
But
That's it. Yeah.
the induction, I basically said that magnetism was induced uh, in these, perhaps maybe by the fact that there is an electric field, and the alignment of these molecules. Basically, I used the term incorrectly, uh, and it showed my ignorance. And the person in charge was that astronomy guy. He was
Mhm.
invited to the forum uh, to have a debate. And of course, he mocked everything that these people did. And he seized on what I said and lambasted me. You
Who
know,
was that? Oh, okay, the astronomy guy. Okay.
yeah, that the astronomy guy.
Mhm.
That was his name. I don't know what if he's making videos still or whatever. But anyway,
So Wall came to your aid.
well, he said there's no need to bash the guy. I think you understand his premise is he was trying to say that there was somehow an influence between this and that, and that because he used the word induction doesn't mean that you should have the right to make fun of him. He's an
Mhm.
amateur, you know. And now, which is more impressive because Wall is himself uh, self-taught
Mhm.
with
Yes.
regards to electrical engineering.
Yes.
I went to school for electrical engineering, and
He seemed to know his stuff.
well, that's what I mean. I recognized that although he was self-taught, when I was done learning electrical engineering, going back,
Mhm.
I could not fault him on his premise or his ideas, except for perhaps one, which I did end up um, challenging him, not directly though. It would be a little bit presumptuous of me to actually do that.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I was I was lucky to have won the scholarship to go to in 2015 to go to Phoenix to meet all these people,
Mhm.
and I was thoroughly excited. Obviously, the event had a situation in the book room, we'll call it, not
Mhm.
off the main room,
Mhm.
and during the quote unquote downtimes, these people were still booked. So even if they weren't talking on the stage, okay, and listening intently to others on the stage, they were outside in their off time from that to be there giving other little talks about things.
Mhm.
So I was going to say he has my shirt on.
No, he does.
Yeah, I have that shirt.
I have the Squatter Man. I got it a
I
long
got them
time
both.
ago. Yeah.
Had to get them both. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't
I
think
just.
that's me. Yeah, but you can see pictures of me. I think in 2015. I don't know. Anyway, um, it's neither here nor there.
Did you ever meet him in person?
Oh my God, yes, of course, several times,
So when was that, and what was the occasion?
Well, I was sort of working my way up to it.
Okay, keep going.
In this conversation,
Carry on.
he spoke on the way that the Earth was formed,
Mm-hmm.
and I questioned that after he was done. Like, I listened intently, and I besides my giving a few consternated looks, I didn't interrupt him, obviously. And it was only supposed to be a short update, and uh, he had to get on to other things. I mean, he basically had an hour off, and he took 20 minutes to have another talk. So I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't going to interrupt him.
Right.
Um, but one of the advantages of being one of the winning scholars is, yeah, they take you right up and shake the hands of the people there. So that's how I met them the first time. It was
Okay.
is like Susan took me up directly and was like, "This is Wal Thornhill. This is Donald Scott. This is David Talbot.
So how
Hi,
did
pleased
you
to meet
get that?
you."
You did something, like you wrote something, or?
I wrote a paper called "As History Has Shown," and it
Okay.
was my interpretation of the events and why we should basically look in a different direction than what is being said,
Right.
because our understanding of the foundational principles of the universe are extremely lacking. And our point of view is just as dangerous as the point of view of fighter pilots only fighting in 2D.
Mm-hmm.
It's that kind of thought. We are we're throwing metal spaceships through electric fields that are 500,000 volts,
Uh-huh.
and we wonder why they blow up.
Hmm.
So the situation with Wall in this particular tape, he was having a conversation. Now, his main gist was the way that the Earth was carved. He
Mm-hmm.
said that the oceans could have been carved. They have a mid-ocean ridge. This ridge, this whole thing could be not unlike that of Mars when we look at Mars scars, or the Grand Canyon when we look at its scars, the way that they are stepped um, V-shaped trenches, following the principles of, well, I guess for lack of a better term, following the principles of a Townsend discharge. So this was something that he's never really done before. Really talked about that aspect of it, the formation of the planet. It just wasn't brought up
Mm-hmm.
much before. So I was talking to a lady whom I found out later was Jean Hafner,
Mm-hmm.
who ran the bookstore area and was a volunteer for the Thunderbolts. Uh, One of the people who, behind the scenes that make things run well.
Mm-hmm.
And a few others like-minded who wanted to explore this topic, but Wall left. I said, I have a different point of view. And she goes, what's your point of view? And I explained my point of view is using the gentleman named Jan. Unfortunately, I can't remember his name right off the top of my head, but he basically brought up the hollow Earth seismology. Like, if you typed in hollow Earth seismology, that would be him. Um, uh, in my opinion, uh, he had some valid claims. He couldn't explain it. Could explain it, and
Explain what?
why he thought that why the core of the planet seems to be hollow. Where
Right.
we think that there's a solid metal core, he thinks that it goes from solid to liquid to an empty space, and he generally proves it with his his findings. He's not saying that it's livable. He's not saying anything like that. In fact, I would say if there was a hell, that would define it right there. Like it would be an impossible place to be. Okay, as any human being, you could never be there. But what is making it expand? And this vexed me for a while until I came to something talking about the way that they thought the Earth was formed prior to plate tectonics. They thought the Earth was divided into several different land masses, which were or areas or balls, I guess, that were all crushed together into form one sphere, and the resulting disintegration of the coating of these further planets, and the fact that there was an opening left in the middle of it allowed that opening to spool gases to form using the magnetic fields and form a vortex. And this vortex eventually carved out and made the hole that's in the middle of the planet and would likely push the planet open.
No, this is this other guy that says it, not Wal.
This is me.
Oh, that's you. Okay.
This is me. Okay. This is.
So you told Wal that.
I told the other people that were there that.
Okay.
I eventually told Wal about it, and as you may or may not know, it is. It's discussed by Wal and others now in regards to things like Jupiter and Earth. So that idea that there was an expansion, and the reason that the mechanism was given is because normally there's no mechanism. See, and this, of course, means how did the planet expand? What, are you dumb? Like, come on, right? But in the electric sense, once I explained it to Wal, I said to Wal straight up, if this circular area was carved out by this vortex, it would be equidistant on all sides and would be positively charged, because it would be a positively charged surface pushing against itself across the void.
Okay.
So it would try to push the planet apart. I mean, this is the electric force we're talking about here, trying to physically push the planet apart. Okay, and now the reason this is interesting is because this is something that happens with magnetic fields. And Wal knew this, is that if you, for example, I take a bunch of magnets and I put them around a big magnet, right? And I suddenly increase the size and diameter of that magnet in the middle, if I could do such a thing, all the other magnets push apart and get farther away from this magnet. It's like they stay in their own ring at a certain distance. And the argument is therefore made, well, would the planets also push themselves open? Because they'd have less electric pressure on the outside, as they did when the Earth was in the golden age. Could the oceans be relatively young? Type of thing.
That's a mighty heavy conversation.
Yeah, and we had a great conversation about that. And I believe that our chosen location for this incredibly intellectual discussion with Pierre Robitaille and oh my God, I feel terrible. Our math gentleman, the gentleman who knows everything about math, whose name escapes me right at the moment. Stephen Carruthers. Yeah. Thank you. Oh, the reason is because the location was Hooters. We were in Phoenix downtown.
Having a beer at Hooters.
Hooters. That's exactly when. Yeah. That's where we had this conversation. So it was.
We always went to Phoenix to play in the MSPL World Series.
Well, there you are.
We went to Hooters, so I've been there. That's crazy. Well, I don't want to make a left turn, but I just want to share something with you. The Earth is a colloid, much like blood cells, and much like the sun. And Wal Thornhill had said that he believed the core of the sun was iron, and
Me too.
the core of
Uh,
our blood cells is iron too.
we had that discussion.
Yep. Oh, really? And then the blood cell, the outer shell is maintained from the inner by -70 millivolts. It's called zeta potential. And
Yes.
I think that the Earth and the Sun are probably very similar.
Um, I would think that you're right. I would
Yeah.
think that if we were to think of the Earth all the way down to the core,
Mm.
we're going to find life all the way down.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's possible.
That's
There
my
are fish
opinion.
that exist in vents where they should be cooking.
Right.
Yeah.
And the stuff that's coming out of that, the reason that the Earth is cracking and being pulled apart
Hmm.
is because of that. I think that the magnetism or current of our solar system changed. And when that changed, or like, for example, when we were no longer orbiting Saturn,
Hmm.
for example,
Yeah.
you could say that that was recent, or you could say that according to, uh, I would go with, I hate to say this given that we were talking about Wal Thornhill, but John Cook seems to make a better argument that we were dropped off here by Saturn first and started getting perennial plants, and Saturn came back every 23 million years and messed us up.
Hmm.
And then we got picked up again when she flung by, and we were sort of caught in that golden age there for a while. But it couldn't really change what was already happening, which was the planet was expanding.
Hmm.
And it was expanding because of the fact that we were dropped off around a new sun that had a different electrical potential than
Right.
the one that we were in.
Right.
So that changed the electrostatic pressure and increased the electrostatic pressure on the center of the planet. So the planet expanded, more or less. And the only way that it could be explained is that there's a liquid core around that empty space. And that liquid core must be molten, much like the surface of the sun is.
Like a plasma.
Well, I think a plasmoid exists in the center of the planet, yes.
Do you think the Earth ever has a possibility it could explode?
Yes. I think about that a little bit every day.
I know, you're not alone. Halton Arp thought that it was expanding too fast,
Yeah, I
and there
think
was a
he's right.
yeah.
I don't think it would, I don't think that, I think that our winner here is the sheer volume of oceans and our network of volcanoes.
Yeah.
I know that sounds terrible, but
Well,
before the whole thing would actually explode, like really pop, the pressure would have to build so all the volcanoes will want to pop.
I read that volcanoes are the Earth's circuit breaker.
I think they are.
Yeah.
I think that that's why it makes a lot of sense when you realize that they really surround one half of the planet, and
Hmm.
that planet half happens to be the lowest, okay, and perfectly friggin' smooth, which is
Hmm.
basically the Pacific Ocean.
Right.
And the rest, if you think about the land left over from the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, just the land left over, think of that like dirt on a metal ball.
Yeah.
And the electrostatics are just slowly heating up and blowing little pieces out of it all the time.
Man.
And that's basically what's going on all the time
You
with
know,
the
at the
with
Marianas Trench, I don't mean to step on you. I'm sorry. I
please
have
step on
sometimes
me.
I have
It's
to
your show.
blurt things out because I'm gonna, I'll forget it. But the Earth they found, they did in the bottom of the Marianas Trench, the Earth is expanding, but
Yes.
they don't know where it's expanding to. You know, I mean, after a while, something's going to have to pop.
The question becomes: is there subduction?
What is subduction?
Subduction is basically if the Earth is expanding, some places along the edges should be subtracted or
Yes,
subducting,
that's what I meant. Yeah.
and underneath the subduction volcanoes should form. Okay, according to their theory.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree. I agree. I think that this is an electrical phenomenon, and it's happening because of the flatness of the Pacific Ocean.
I
That's
just
why
lost.
the flatness of the Pacific Ocean.
You're back.
Yeah, and it should be the
Yes.
same as
Yeah.
in the Atlantic Ocean. We have like the Canary Islands and a few other volcanic islands. That's all it needs. Iceland that can process the Atlantic Ocean. The Atlantic Ocean is really not that big compared to the Pacific.
Now, do you think that it was carved by the massive amounts of waters that got dumped from Saturn, or one of the
I don't
gas
know.
plants?
I honestly don't know if
And they
massive amounts
just
of water
flooded the
got dumped from
lowlands?
Saturn. I don't think it did.
It didn't come from Saturn, you think?
I don't think the theory is required.
But where would we have gotten our water? A brown dwarf star have copious amounts.
No, I'm well, according to their theory.
Mm-hmm.
See, when you say that brown dwarfs have copious amounts of water, that's
Yeah.
because they've detected two things coming in their thing. The same thing they detected in comets. They
Okay.
detected O and H, but that's not H2O. That's O
Right.
and H.
I didn't know that.
Right. It's hydrogen monoxide, not
I just,
dioxide.
I
And
just,
so
just
that
learned something.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's why I think that they're wrong on a lot of these ideas. Now, did I think that water could have come from Saturn? Yes, totally.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think it did? Maybe not the way we think it did. I think if I was a betting man, I would say that the Earth was subjected to an electrical etching above the north and south pole
Mm-hmm.
that was building up material in the south and extracting it from the north. This extraction from the north lowered the global overall water level, and it rained down all around, or snowed down all around this area, and it became the part of the Laurentine ice sheet and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
That's why just beyond that, the sun shone, and that's where the woolly mammoths lived, and eating buttercups like we found,
Yeah. Yeah.
underneath this wonderful
That grew
sun that
1,000 miles away.
yeah, and they were underneath this thing, looking up at this monumentally green, glowing, beautiful thing up there in the northern hemisphere. That's what I think. But it's also holding up water because the gravity of Saturn plus whatever other planets were up there. Okay, even though they were a million miles distance compared to, or 2 miles distant, million miles distant compared to, say, the orbit of the moon, which is 237,000 miles. So if you know how big the moon is 0.3 gravities of Earth, and at arm's length, it is the size of an aspirin. So this thing was a million miles away, but it was the size of Jupiter or the size of Saturn or
How
whatever.
old did Wal think the Earth was? Did he ever say to you?
No, we had a debate. Our debate was never about that type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
because the question always remained, well, when did the Earth show up here?
Yeah.
Are you right or are they right? Personally, as much as I agree with Wal on a lot of things,
Yeah.
electric gravity, for example,
Yeah.
and many other things that he's come across, I would always debate him on the age of the Earth, because we have evidence of 23 million year hits, and we have evidence of, long before this concept even came into being, and the idea of uh, of um, flowering plants being as old as 530 million years. Well, that's orchids, by the way. And
Mm-hmm.
orchids are found to be that old. Well,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
only way that could happen is in a perennial system. So,
Yeah. Workers are strange. I heard they
now
take like 9 years to grow.
yes, but they eventually become perennial. See, that's the
Oh,
weird thing about them.
yeah.
It's like they were somewhat of a plant before we got dropped off by Jupiter and sort of adapted to work under the sun.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
became flowering every year. But it was like one of the first plants to ever do it. Now, do I think that Wal because of this one thing that Wal could be entirely wrong the whole time about that? No. But I think that me, being someone like that, wants to preserve a legacy. I think that would be the wrong one to build on, only because, let me face it, this is no longer being judged by them. They're gone, in a way. I mean, as I said, Don Scott, bless his soul, should do whatever he wants and ignore us for the rest of his life. I mean, just enjoy it. Just enjoy whatever time he has left on this planet with his wife and his grandkids and whatever he wants. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that's for me, because he's done his service to king and country. David Talbot has suffered a stroke. He doesn't deserve to be drugged through any sort of ordeals whatsoever. So who's going to be the person who judges whether or not these are all true or all wrong or what? Well, it's going to be us. And people like myself have read all of it, or at least heard them all explained to him by the authors themselves. So is David Talbot right? Well, he has this idea about this beautiful, we saw, it's always been this way, and then we got dropped off around the sun.
So is David Talbot doing better? Has he recovered?
I do not know. I do not know. But again, it's nothing that I'm pushing.
Do you think the future for Thunderbolts looks good? Or do you?
I would have to say that the future of Thunderbolts is a group of people, and I do not know. As a community, the community is better than it has ever been.
That's good.
Okay, if you think about it, more people talk about it now than did 10 years ago, and and 100 times more than they did 10 years before that.
It speaks for itself. You just have to give it an open-minded look, and then the all the facts will nail you.
Well, exactly, and they're going to keep producing things, and they have ideas and everything like that, and they're going to keep reporting on it until whatever money or whatever agency is doing it finally says I'm retiring or hands it off to someone else. I don't expect, the reins of this are not important to me, because the community itself has hit a point where I can, instead of being a fight on whether or not John Cook is right or Dave Talbot's right, okay, I don't care. I mean, whether or not they're right or wrong is not as important as the evidence they bring to the table. Mm-hmm. Just, I mean, having a debate over, it's like having a debate over, basically you're just saying, did it happen 12,000 years ago, or did it happen 520 million years ago? Mm-hmm. And we don't even know if those ages of 520 million years are accurate anyway.
Yeah,
because we don't know how we don't know how electricity and electric charges affect radioactive decay, except it seems to in a positive way. The higher the thing is charged, the quicker it decays. So,
one of the biggest things to see, because I discovered, I'll spit it out. I discovered Bellikovski from Wal, and right. He gave him a lot of propers, and rightfully so. And that then you even can go back further to Russell and other people. Then, if the mainstream would have just hitched up to people like that, man, who knows how far along we'd be right now.
Well, number one, I don't agree with Russell. You see.
Yeah, but I mean, he did.
Now, do I think that? But his thinking, it was very interesting.
Yeah.
It showed a different way of looking at things.
He just said basically everything is electricity.
No, and these are the parts I agree with. But other parts, I think of him as a charlatan.
But
that's just me being a person who works on this sort of thing. Like I want to know. I want to, when there's stories here. Like, just the implications of what I said indicated bad blood between certain members of the Thunderbolts community.
I didn't know that.
Well, the implications are there just by what I said.
Mhm.
By saying it doesn't matter who agrees with whose theory.
Right.
Well, people did argue this
Yeah.
strongly, yelling across tables strongly at conventions in the 90s and such.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now, and some of these people, were persona non grata or whatever. Not really, but, sort of like, you better not show up
Outsiders.
here. You know,
Outsiders.
I'm an outsider. They welcome me.
Oh,
But, but,
yeah.
but I'm saying that basically when somebody doesn't agree with your theory,
Yeah.
just like in conventional, the thing we're arguing about,
Hmm.
the way that modern um, modern scientific institutions have groupthink, and
Absolutely. You got that
they
right.
have
Yeah.
cliques, and they work together to ostracize those who are on the outside
Yeah.
of the chosen theory. Well,
It's
whether or
fiction.
not he wanted to or not, Wal and Dave and others did that unconsciously. Does that make them bad people? No, that makes them human people. And they've easily, in the time that I have seen, luckily I came in at the end of something that could have been an entire lifetime of bitterness. But
Yeah.
when I saw them at the conventions and they were speaking again,
Very personable, were they?
well, they were at least speaking.
Okay. Who's they? Are we allowed to know?
Well, I just mentioned two of them. For example, Dave Talbot's point of view from the Saturn Myth book, and John Cook's point of view, or Janelle Cook's book from
Yeah. No. Yeah.
SaturnCosmology.org.
Yeah. John Cook's. He's a little orthodox with his dates. He goes way back to the billions.
And he's also dead.
Yeah. I know. I know.
Okay,
I like
so
his
he
theory. I
can't
just don't agree
change,
with the time. That's all.
but neither one of them can change now.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they put
Right.
forth something and they became glued to it. Now, when I look at John Cook's work, I see it in conventional chronologies. But I also have to admit now that chronologies can change based on radioactive decays and the strength of the electric field at the time. And what we're talking about is the strength of the electric field changing
Yeah.
and how it changed the planet. So right back to bring it all the way back down to Wal, this is why whether or not the Earth was hollow and how it was formed changes everything about how we view the way that the world is in the electric universe. Like, did it happen quickly or did it happen slowly? And here's the thing that makes it interesting. When all that water was being held up by the North Pole and all the mass at the North Pole, being Saturn and perhaps Uranus and other such bodies, um, Mars and Venus and so forth, and a slew of moons probably. Um, well, that would pull a lot of water up. Plus, that water would get vaporized and get snowed down into big giant ice sheets, which that seems to be fairly accurate to what occurred. Now, the thing is that when those bodies left, Saturn almost ran into them, as you know, and flung them out to their current orbits. And as such, we were free of the electric field of the plasma field of that conjunction that we were in, and we
Yeah.
were now fully immersed in the plasma field of the sun.
Now you see, I like the way he does the pictorial stuff. I think it's brilliant work.
Of course,
Yeah.
but the argument then is it more spectacular that we caught back up to Saturn and got picked up by it again, or is it more spectacular that we got dropped off here once? You see what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's the argument.
Right.
Now, and of course, at the end, I don't think it's that big an argument because these are things that can be answered later. It doesn't change the overall theory. some people could say, well, this changes this, that changes that. But at the end of the day, when that conjunction left, suddenly there was no heat above the northern pole. Okay, so the northern pole no longer had the heat and the electricity vaporizing all the water, and the muggy atmosphere that was generated by all this vaporized water, which started coming back out of the atmosphere because of lack of heat, and it rained, and it rained, and it rained, and of course, the entire ocean rebalanced itself. Basically, it was being held up on one end of the planet. Well, both ends, because it would be over around Antarctica as well. But because that's how tides work. Anyway, then they would meet in the middle at the equator and bunch up and get higher than it's ever been before, like literally cover the pyramids high or cover a mountain high type stuff, and then go back and slosh and then come back again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if you thought you were going to die then, but you were going to die the second time it came back in. Like, holy crap, man.
Yeah,
like they had no chance whatsoever. And that was all the people who lived in the lowlands that we would consider underwater now. So no wonder when after it was done raining and everything like that and all the weather rebalanced, it was like, yeah, the water around the equator rose 150 friggin' meters. That's crazy. I don't think it was just ice melting that did that. I think that was the going away of these bodies, and of course the lack of vaporization of the water that etched all of the Canadian Shield into a crisscrossing mess. By the way, it's a beautiful thing because it's so isolated. Human beings never been there, really. I mean, truly been there, if you know what I mean.
It's thought that the entire North American continent was like electrocuted all at once, like
yes, that was
Barry or something. Barrier
that's
lighting.
this is where I go with this is where we jump into
Along
another
with all the
tragic
big
loss.
Yeah.
Michael Steinbacher.
Yes, I remember him.
He's the gentleman who came up with the idea that this diorite formation in the middle of this mountain range, in the middle of California and wherever it was there, was just the center of a giant arc that basically formed the Rocky Mountains and all the way up to Canada. And he has really good reason to do that. Think that. I would say that too.
Yeah.
I would. I know it seems crazy, but the thing that makes mountains different than just other things is the amount of magnetism and magnetic elements that are in them. The amount of high amount of iron in the rocks, because it makes it clump up and form into points and stuff like that. Just like if you could envision mountains being sprinkled from toner copier stuff onto magnets. That's kind of how mountains get formed in their weird shapes.
Yeah, that's right.
As opposed to something that's wearing down. Because I mean, you can see how sharp the edges are on some of these things, and you're like, how did that happen?
Yeah, there's different kinds of mountains too. Because when you get out west, like in Nevada, like that, it's more like a conical dump. You can almost see where it was, either melted or dumped and melted, like a cake,
And my initial thing and unfortunately, I never got a chance to talk with Talbot about this, and I think that this is one thing that I think is the next step for the electric universe, really, in my opinion, is examining ancient sites made by mankind and defining the hits that they were in, like where the hits were and what they did and what they looked like. And because we see that certain sides of temples, especially in Mesoamerica, were blasted, but only from one side. And the same thing happened in the Minoan culture in Crete. Um, just many examples of that. So, with this damage being lopsided and suggesting a lateral blast wave, there is no other explanation but either there was a giant meteor hit, a nuclear bomb hit, okay, a meteor, by the way, which we can't find, okay, we can't find it, a nuclear bomb that we can find no radiation from, or an electrical event. Those are your real options.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that only we could, that's one thing that only we can answer. As the electric universe, if I was to be a betting man, that is where I would go. And that's why I've always been focused on getting to that point where we can start looking at, I mean, no offense to people like Ryan Forrester, but they have no idea what they're talking about.
Really?
No, he knows what he's talking about against on all the stuff, but his reasoning behind it.
Oh, I don't. I'm not aware of that. I'm not familiar with that. I just think that
Well,
he
no,
has.
he's following people like Graham Hancock and stuff like
Yes, I
that.
know. And Graham Hancock's
So,
is a phony. I
well,
mean,
it's
call it
neither
like
here nor
it is.
there whether or not he's a phony. I credit him with the book Footprints or Fingerprints of the
Yeah, okay.
Gods,
But
and
you know, you did think he ripped off
no. Let me
Bellikovski. Okay.
be clear. The reason that I give him any thanks on that alone is because without him, I would never have even looked at the Thunderbolts.
Without who?
Without Graham Hancock, his
So
book,
Hancock? I never heard him
his
mention Thunderbolts.
no, he didn't. He didn't. No, but the fact that he introduced me to the idea of a worldwide culture around the world,
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
very
Well,
interesting to me.
yeah, I heard a couple of his lectures on the pyramids that I began to like him and follow him. But you see, once I learned about Velikovsky and, the whole
No,
species with
of
amnesia
course.
thing, I
No,
really just
I'm
didn't
not.
have a very
No, no,
good
no.
look.
There's no. I'm not saying everyone go grab his book and believe him. Trust me, he's the truthful soothsayer. No, no, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that I thank him
Yeah,
for that, for
yeah,
giving me the
yeah.
open
Well,
mind
yeah,
when
you're
I
right.
needed it,
I can give you that. I agree. He did
and
me too.
that allowed me to now I have the capacity and the understanding to recognize some of the things that Brian Forster, which he's going, it looks like they were hit by maybe a giant meteoric wave or something. And I'm like, that's melt damage and that's blast damage,
Mm.
and that blast damage up there, that blast damage over there is supersonic. Thanks to Andy, I know what that looks like. And Andy Hall, by the way. So here I am at this point, this juncture, and I am saying, I won't bend, but I will give everyone a fair shake. And so, Wal Thornhill is a person who not only could talk the talk and walk the walk, but he made me realize that there's not a lot of people who can do him justice. Like, for example, the subject you're on right now, on that page, twisted pairs and braids everywhere.
Yeah. Look
That
at look at that.
this
That is
this
just
had nothing to do
amazing.
with the one thing that I disagree with him on. Do you see what I mean?
Hmm.
Just because I disagree with him on one thing and David Talbot on one thing
Yeah.
and disagree with someone else on one thing
Right.
doesn't mean
No.
that I should throw everything that they say out.
Exactly. We never agree with everyone 100% of the time.
No,
Disagreement is good.
and I've talked to people who, we can have this entire electrical universe conversation without talking about Bellikovski. It's hard, but it can be done. And we can have
Yeah.
the entire electric universe conversation without talking about electric universe at all, just talking about myths.
Yeah.
Well, those are two interesting points of view. And when those two linked, that's when these people were on the right track. And that is what Wal Thornhill facilitated.
Mhm.
He made that connection. That's what he should be known for. If anything else, he's the one that said, hang on a minute, but in Australian,
Yeah.
whatever that is. And then he said, that's an electrical discharge phenomenon. And someone up there said, what? And that is during a Cronia conference in, well, maybe 1995, 96, 94, somewhere in that area.
And you knew him? No, you didn't know
No,
him.
I didn't know him at all, but I
Oh.
know this story. And
Okay.
he's the one that said,
Well,
that's it. That is an electrical discharge formation.
right. Yeah. Yep, you're right. Yeah. And he
And
was
so
right.
he linked Bellikovski and the electric universe together for the first time. He's the guy that did that. No one else can take credit for him.
Hmm.
Like that's it. That's the guy. And if it wasn't for him, both sides would be looking down the wrong area without this collaboration. This collaboration, which by the way, as we talked before, has its detracting elements. For example, you have people who are, for lack of a better term, Bible thumping, and they believe you because they want to use you to prove their theories. You have someone who's trying to sell crystals, and they want you to prove that their crystals do something.
Yeah.
And everything like that.
Well,
Everything.
the story of how Wal and Dave knew each other before they came together and then came together and were both describing the same thing. That story is like magic,
It was the
it's a
link.
great story.
It's the magical link that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let me put it to you this way: it is the link that made the gods gods again.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like before, we were talking about what the gods were in Bellikovskian terms,
Yes.
and we knew that we were planets, right? But we didn't really understand. And then someone
Yes.
said, "No, no, no. Let me explain it to you this way:
Yes.
planets on fire." Oh,
It's a whole new
oh,
way of looking at the myths. Now they're describing the story in
oh.
the sky.
And it'd be slow moving fire. It'd be weird looking fire. It'd be kind of following the magnetic fields fire. You know,
Yeah.
that's why there's a handbag reaching out back there. It's not the hand is not a hand that's sitting in front of the object. The hand is reaching back towards Saturn. That
Yeah.
handbag is Saturn. On his wrist is the star of Saturn.
Ah, I see what you're saying.
So that
Hmm.
handbag is the tail of Jupiter reaching off backwards from the winged man that Jupiter is, and sitting on his throne or whatever,
Hmm.
reaching back towards this Saturn in the background, connected to it.
And what
And
is that? Which character? Which god?
that's that anything with the handbag, the Sumerian handbag. You just type that in.
Oh, Sumerian handbag. Okay, yeah. Come
See,
back to.
and you can see suddenly you're looking at something completely different.
Gotta be cool. I don't want to go. I usually do that.
Well,
Yeah, Greg's typing again.
see,
Yeah.
so it used to be the two lions that were feeding the world on either side of it, but
Yeah.
that's why they're there right now. Notice the flower in the middle is the flower from the top of the flower that was coming up from the middle of the world. Why
Yeah.
is that handbag so important? It
Right.
is important because that is the symbols that used to be the god. Okay, those are symbols of Saturn. The two lions on either side with the tree in the middle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the fleur de lis. That's the tree of knowledge. That's everything about Saturn. Okay, on this handbag. Okay, now you go take that handbag and you put it
I gotta
see,
get me one.
held by the gods.
Yeah.
Now his wrist, he has like a wristwatch on, and
Yes.
that wristwatch is a flower. See,
Yes.
right there.
Yep.
That flower is Saturn as well, isn't it?
Yep.
The
That's what
symbol for Saturn, the ancient symbol for
so I
Saturn.
thought. Yeah.
So that bag is Saturn.
See, I thought they were astronauts and he was carrying his own
No,
air conditioning unit.
no. And that body he's looking at, look at
I'm
the
just kidding.
body. That
Yeah.
is those wings. Those are the
Yeah.
wings of Jupiter, the new
Wings of
god.
Jupiter. Yeah. Yeah,
So
Earth, man. What's up with
the
Earth?
gigantic plumes coming out of it. Imagine how big that is. If Jupiter if you saw the size of Jupiter, it would be bigger than a quarter in the sky at arm's length.
Okay.
Way bigger than that.
Wow. That's a good way of putting it.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
could see this beautiful thing and a beautiful guy over there with wings around him on a red throne, reaching back with a handbag. That handbag, of course, is Saturn because it's behind Jupiter. It's still connected to it. They're still fighting.
Interesting.
They're
Huh.
both traveling back towards where they're eventually going to stop, which
How
is
can you
5 and
glean
8 AU.
something like that? That's
Well,
that's
look
amazing.
at the snakes on either side of it. There's the acorn. Now the acorn, I don't know. I think
Yeah.
that's another planet that it's reaching to.
Is that maybe a cone of that monatomic gold?
No, what I think
The,
that is, if I was a bet man, and I'm not exactly going to want to bet this one, but that cone is probably uh, Uranus, the other giant planet that was attached to. But remember, it has a sideways magnetic field. Because it's on its side. Uranus is on its side, so it looks like a cone.
yeah, carrying it
Okay,
on both. They're both
right.
hemispheres.
They're reaching back. Notice how he's holding it very weird. It's because that's the way the tail is. The tail of Saturn or Jupiter is broken up into two directions. One is heading towards a planet and holding it there, and the other one is the handbag Saturn and holding it there. Those are the two gods. All three gods are in that picture. Notice, by the way, the two things on either side of the head of Saturn. Of Jupiter, I mean. Look at those two giant puffballs on either side of its ears. That's the torus, the magnetic field of Saturn looking back at you. The rings. Of Jupiter, sorry, Jupiter. And the wings, of course, are the plasma field that you can see, concentrated by the magnetic field.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that is. That's what that's a picture of.
Damn, you're blowing my mind, Neil. That's pretty cool. I just how that can all be gleaned by that picture.
I'm certain that
Amazing.
anyone who studies this stuff as much as I do would recognize. I mean, for a long time it baffled my mind. I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard Andy have a conversation about it. Some people are trying to say it's this, it's that, but look at the symbols in the middle. Look, what is that of? That's a guy choking down two friggin' snakes on either side of him. Okay,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
lions below.
Yeah.
Okay, now he has a dress on, a skirt as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is this fella here. Now,
Yeah.
if you look at ancient symbols, two snakes or two poles or two posts are on either side of the celestial thing that goes up to heaven. Okay, through the North Pole.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have two pillars on either side of doorways today.
Yeah, and you got all the
All that from
worldwide
that.
picture of the guy holding two things.
Yes,
That's like a worldwide thing.
that's the squatter man.
Yeah.
Notice the vagina in his legs. Okay, like if he was spread, if his legs were spread. Okay,
Yeah.
imagine they both
Yeah, a little
were
freaky.
spread. Then you would have a vagina sitting there where his feet are right now.
It's getting a little freaky.
No, but
I know.
that's called a Sheena Nagig.
A
And they're
Sheena and a gig.
and they're in Ireland. They're the female version of this man.
Wow, you amaze me, man. That's
Like
amazing.
it's just type in Sheena or Sheila
Sheila.
Nagig. So
Okay. I'm gonna Sheila.
N-A,
M-A.
N-A, no, N-A,
Oh.
like not
N-A. N-A.
space. Oh, there it is, right there. Sheila Nagig, right down there in the fifth one down.
Okay.
Okay, that's the symbol. See,
Okay.
and they have that pronounced vagina look to them because
Oh yeah.
they're not real, obviously.
Come take some. It's okay.
But that's obviously not what it's about. I mean, look at the eyes. The
I
eyes
know.
are those beautiful transfixing orbs that are sometimes considered to be owl eyes.
You know how great these carvings are? Is like, do
You
you
know what's
think
even
that
great? You know why
anyone
they're so
today could
great?
create something in the last 5,000 years?
Well, do you know what's so great about them?
What?
Is that they destroyed the churches that the original symbols in Ireland and
Yeah, that's
replaced them all with churches.
a
And do you
little
know what
freaky.
the guys did?
Huh.
They put these back up on the tops of the churches where the pastor couldn't see them. That's why they still exist today
Huh.
in Ireland, because they're all over the
Yeah,
place. That
I
because
see
basically
that.
they were giving the middle finger, and they're all high up, so
Uh-huh.
you can never find them. That's the squatter man right there.
The squatter man.
That's the squatter man right there.
Wow. Yeah, I know they got it. You know, the ancients had some weird thing about sex. You know,
But that's
they're
not it.
they
But
had
look
a
at look.
penis hang
But
up.
but look how weird that is. Of course, you'd have a
Yeah,
hang up about it.
yeah.
I mean, that
I
thing
guess
looking
so.
at you when you're trying
Yeah,
to. I mean, I'm trying to get it on with my girl, and I'm seeing this
waiting for a
eyes
baby to
looking in
come
the.
out. You know,
I'm
she's
looking at the
dilated.
windows. I'm looking at the windows and seeing the big-eyed lady with her vagina showing there, man.
She's
You know,
dilated 10.
like every night she's there looking at me. No
Yeah.
wonder they get fucking freaked out in here.
Oh, I know. The
But
craziest
and
thing.
remember, they can only see this from this point of view because they're in Ireland. They're very
Bunch of
close to
sky
the trans.
drinking.
They're very close to the original source. Remember, it's
Yeah.
just across Greenland. You skip Iceland to Greenland, you're at the bottom of this Sheena na gig.
I'll be damned. Yeah, I just
That's
learned that new. I never knew that before.
and
Yeah, I see. Yeah, it seems
and
to be.
so they're
Yeah,
basically they're seeing the bottom of something that you cannot see if you're farther away.
that was a giant plasma formation in the sky right above people's eyes, right?
But if you go back and back and back to say Egypt,
Hmm.
it you would only see the head.
Okay.
That's where the head, like in Greece, in ancient Greece, you only saw the head of this thing. That's the
Uh,
owl eyes. And then there was stuff coming out of the top of it that was even bigger to you. But that was the brightest point way down there, and that's why they drew it.
was this during Jupiter's reign?
This is during Saturn's reign.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting.
So these symbols are diligently carved and recarved, is the way that they were, and they're thousands of years old.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's
That's
only in
obviously a
Ireland.
modern. That's a
Yeah.
modern retelling of it. Obviously, you can get the
So, yeah, it's only in Ireland though.
only in Ireland.
So Irish people would get this. It's like some goddess, right?
Yes, she's a Sheila Nagig.
That's cool. Yeah, I wouldn't mind having one.
If you type into Wiki, you'd learn all about it. It's British don't
Sheila
really
and a
look like it.
gig. Yeah,
Yep.
maybe I'll get like a little garden ornament, you know. My son's real proud of his Irish roots.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I have some Irish roots as well, so I can understand it.
Yeah.
The Scots had a different situation. Remember, they had the Gaels came in and destroy all the Pictish shit, and
Yeah.
the Pictish shit would have been the Pictic shit that got destroyed and was replaced with Gaelic shit. But they didn't have the Sheena the Gigs. If there were Sheena the Gigs, they were all destroyed by the Pictish, any versions of them, and
Hmm.
replaced with Gaelic versions. You see what I mean? So basically, we cannot trust any Scottish renditions of Sheila and the Gigs because they are pretty much guaranteed inauthentic to the originals.
Ah,
You
I'll
get my
be
meaning?
damned. Yes. Yes. Yeah. You know, I have to let's take five because I gotta go
Actually,
get.
I have to go.
Oh,
I should go anyway.
well, let's not, we'll just make this part one because I wanted to
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about Wall and we kind of got sidetracked, but it
Well,
was good.
this is what
Yeah.
we're supposed to do because
Yeah.
this is what Wall did for us, right?
Yeah. He got us into the deepness. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have learned about Velikovsky, you know?
Well,
So,
why don't you think of some questions with regards to specifically Wall, and I'll come back on tomorrow, maybe even, and
well,
we'll.
yeah, that sounds like a darn good idea. You know, I think I'll ask my subscribers if they have any questions.
Yeah, I'll be happy to answer what I can.
Yeah, because I'm going to live stream this and then we can maybe do a question and answer after.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well,
Love
let's,
that.
yeah, okay. Yeah, we can
I'll make
plan.
myself available for tomorrow. Um, we'll pick a time maybe a bit earlier than this and go with that.
Okay, sounds good. I'm going to have to announce a live stream. So I would think that if you want to do that, I'd have to live stream tomorrow then.
Of course, whatever you like.
Yeah, okay, okay. I'll work it out.
I mean,
Yeah,
if for some reason I am injured or otherwise incapacitated,
yeah. We'll
I
just
will
do it
let
the
you know
next day.
immediately.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
as of right now, I have
Say
plans for tomorrow, except for like go to the store. So
say tomorrow night about 8.
sure,
Okay, sounds good. All
all
right,
right.
so we'll be hanging up with this one then, and we'll be taking questions live.
I love this. All right. Well, see you
Sounds
later, Andrew, and see you later, of course, Greg.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks a
It's,
lot for doing it, the show, Neil. I appreciate it very much.
well,
For
was well deserved it, and to avoid us getting off topic, maybe we should
yeah,
ask some questions about him because
yeah.
he
I think
knew
it's
it.
a good
And one thing I'll tell you right now,
yeah,
the reason I took this interview right when you asked is because Wal would do it.
yeah. Oh
Wal
yeah.
Wal would take an interview anywhere to
Well,
help get his
I
word out.
had the
I
pleasure
loved
of
it.
exchanging a couple emails with him, and I could tell just by his response that he was a busy guy. He was constantly busy going, you know.
Yes, I agree.
And he kept saying, "No, I can't. I'm booked, but keep asking." You know.
See,
Then yeah. So
keep asking, keep
yeah.
asking.
But thank God we have all of his wonderful works that will go on to teach people in the future for decades to come, and it can change the world. Well, it should. It changed my life. Every aspect of my life has changed since I discovered the electric universe and Immanuel Bellikovski and Saturn theory, electric universe. It's all just been a win-win. We're so much more enlightened because of gentle souls like Wal Thornhill.